Hello and welcome to more High Peak. Now, I've been a car dealer for nearly 15 years, and in that time I've bought and sold thousands of cars. But there's one brand that's my clear favourite. I know what you're thinking. He's not making another Range Rover video, is he? Well, yes, I am. Yes, I know they can be unreliable, they cost a lot to fuel, they cost a lot to insure, they get stolen a lot, they're difficult to park around town because they're too big, they're not the quickest. The list is quite long, to be honest. And every single time I get burnt by one, I think, right, that's it. I'm just going to pick another brand. How about I get into old Toyotas or something? But it just never happens. I always go back for more. I'm fully aware at this point that I've probably got Stockholm Syndrome. And yet every night before I go to bed, I'm on Facebook Marketplace having a look at another L322 4.4 Vogue. I don't know why, because I already have two. But it just seems that right now is the perfect time to pick them up. You can pick them up really cheaply. Temptingly so, actually. I guess it's thanks to the long list of issues I rattled off earlier, but you can now pick up these cars that were once 60, 80, £100,000 for about 1,500 quid. I just can't believe it. This is why, kind of like an addict, I keep going back for more. So today we're going to go through the list of the cheapest Range Rovers I've ever bought. The list that I've compiled today features a whole variety of Range Rovers, from a very cheap supercharged L322 all the way up to a very cheap L405. So stay tuned. Let's kick off today's list then with a sensible Range Rover, an Evoque that I bought for just £8,500. Let's see what it's like. Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Well, today I bought a very cheap Range Rover Evoque. As you all know, I'm quite a big Range Rover fan. I bought an Evoque for my mum's 60th birthday a few years ago and she loved it. She had it for about 12 months before I replaced it with a Lexus NX. And my brother's just bought an Evoque in the same colour as the one that I bought for my mum, and he loves it. So when I was offered this 2016 Evoque SE with only 54,000 miles on the clock for just £8,500, I couldn't really refuse. I just couldn't help myself really because it sounded very cheap. I'm just hoping it's not cheap for a reason. The trouble with Range Rovers in general, even a little Evoque, is that they're quite costly to prepare for sale. You know, if it needs 4 tyres, there's £1,000 gone straight away. But it's been described to me as being quite nice. I have learned in this job not to trust people's descriptions, but they told me it was quite nice and quite honest. So I'm just praying that it is. I'm thinking right away this could be worth around £12,000. I had a quick look on Auto Trader and that's what they seem to be going for. So it should leave me a good profit margin. There are a couple of negatives though. Firstly is that it's manual. Now I'd prefer an auto personally, but I guess there are some people out there who still prefer to use a clutch and gears. And secondly, it's brown. A brown Evoque. I'm not sure what that'll look like. I haven't seen it yet. In fact, I haven't even seen a photo of it. So I don't know how brown this brown Evoque is. Anyway, let's go and have a look, shall we? I'll see you there. Well, we're here. I don't know if I describe that as brown, to be honest. It's not a bad colour. It reminds me, in the mid-2000s, BMW did a colour like that. Well, on the whole range, but it was popular with X5s. And it always looked quite cool. That's a very similar colour. The wheels are very dirty, so they need a good clean. What else can I tell you? The bodywork looks quite tidy. I was saying that there is a small scuff on the driver's side front bumper. But that's not too bad, really. It's a late car, that, as well. So 2016, so it's only 8 years old. They've got an AA sticker in the window. How ironic. I can't see the tyre brands, but they look okay in terms of, you know, matching tread and tread depth. Right, as always then, we're going to do a quick vehicle history check using Car Vertical. So this is really easy to use. All you do is go to carvertical.com, type in the vehicle reg or the VIN. Now in this case we know it is Charlie November, so it's a Welsh car originally, Sierra Zulu Zulu, check vehicle. By the way, if you want to do these checks for yourself, and I urge you to do so before you hand over any cash for a used car or motorbike, use my promo code HIGHPEAK and you get 20% off. That's 20%. It used to be 10, but they've upped it to 20. This will tell us now whether it's ever been stolen, written off, had a mileage rollback, or has outstanding finance on it. It's a really useful check, because it doesn't just check the UK, it checks dozens of other countries. So for example, if a car's been previously registered somewhere else and it's had an accident, this will tell us. There we go, and the report's ready. So, 436 million vehicles were checked over 35 countries. Okay then, right, this is a Land Rover Range Rover, diesel, 2016. It's never been clocked, no outstanding finance, and there's no recorded damage. And never been stolen. That's the result. Now at the last MOT it done 50,000 miles. I believe it's done 54. But I've bought 8 or 9 cars this morning, so I can't quite remember. What else? So the MOT history is consistent, the mileage is consistent, that's all good. Now the last known selling price of this car was £21,342. It must have been a few years ago, I suppose. Tax band D. It's a 2 litre, so that is the Ingenium engine. It's all-wheel drive and it's manual and it is brown. Ah, look at this as well. This is what's good about Car Vertical. So we've got photos here of the previous time it was for sale. So it was for sale, all right, it doesn't show pictures of the car, but it shows photographs of when they loaded that car into stock at a place called Pinkstones, which, funnily enough, is an MG dealer, and it's also got Pinkstone plates on the car. That was in November 21, so that's when it must have been a 21 grand car. Very good. Right, I suppose we should go and have a look around it, shouldn't we? Very good. Okay then, let's go and have a look at this Evoque. It's not really brown, is it? More of a, I don't know, more of a latte colour. There we go. So over to the tyres then. We're running on a Michelin at the back, which looks ancient actually. What year is this? What year is this? Doesn't tell me. But I can tell by the cracking in the sidewall that it's quite an old one. So that, oh yeah, look at all the cracks here. That's very old. That needs replacing then, ASAP. Bodywork wise, it looks quite straight down the panels. The panel gaps look good. We've got rear sensors, matching plates. We've got a large rear plate as well, which I like to see. No privacy, that's a good thing. It is very, very honest and original, isn't it? It's not a Pimp My Ride special. The other good thing to report, of course, is that we've got both keys. And unlike Range Rover keys of this era, I can't see straight through to the circuit board. They're in decent condition. Both of them. So that's a result. Up front we've got a Trackmar. Trackmar, right, okay. Never heard of that. But it's on, it's quite low actually that. That probably wants replacing. That's on about 3 mil, 2.5, 3 mil. And the wheels are disgusting. They need a good wash. This was the damage I was talking about, so it's not too bad. That needs painting, and then that could be blended into here, I think, and just sort of flick it in and lose it. That's not too bad, and a little bit there, of course. Probably 150 quid, 200 quid maybe, job done. Up front, the badges aren't all corroded and worn, that's good. Just needs a good clean, really. I think I might remove the AA sticker. Looks a bit sinister, doesn't it? We've got another Trackmar on the front. I might put a set of decent tyres on this, you know, something like Nexon or something. The discs look good on the front though, so that's good. Moving around the back, we've got another ancient matching Michelin. This one's even worse. Got all the cracks on that, I can't even see. Can't even see anything. Oh, 2015 that tyre. Can't be the original, surely. Unless someone's put part warns on, cheap part warns. Yeah, that colour doesn't offend me though, looks alright. So in terms of spec, let's see if we've got a power tailgate then, shall we? I don't think so, unless it's broken. No, it's not power. Definitely not. Needs a good clean. Yeah, it's grubby, but it'll clean. It'll clean. Move around the back then, we've got a nice... The alarm works. So we've got brown carpets to match the brown exterior, and inside we've got a beige leather interior. It smells a bit sort of musty, like a musty smell. Yeah, it's very grubby, but it will all clean. Got lots of hair everywhere. Possibly a lady's car this then. Got some parking tickets down there. We've got power fold mirrors, that's good. Let's get in. So this is an Evoque SE, so we've got heated seats, electric seats. It's alright like this, really. Let's see how bad this clutch is. Slight sort of heat shield rattle then, wasn't there? Did you hear that? Sounds alright though. We've got no warning lights on, which is good. It has done 54,000 miles. And it's got the later system. So my brother's is a 2012, I think, or 2013 or something. His doesn't have this. So this is later. And it's also got that later screen as well. So that's all good. Have we got a reverse camera? Don't think we do. No, we don't. We've got sensors though. Get my seat on. There we go. Sat nav. Where would my sat nav be? No, no sat nav then. Oh well, not the end of the world, is it? Well, there are no goodies to be found anywhere. Always like to find something entertaining. Right, I'll spin this camera around then so I don't reveal any GDPR or whatever it's called. Oh, this had a new turbo fitted in September last year at a cost of £911. So that's good. It also had a service at the same time. We've got a print off of the history as well, so we can see everything that it's had done. It had a new EGR valve, typical diesel, isn't it really? Turbo and EGR. It had a service at 50. Then we've got some Land Rover history here at 2 miles, 16,000 miles in Newport, hence the Welsh plate, and another one at Newport at 28,000 miles. The colour, do you want to know this? I didn't know this actually. Kaikoura stone. Sounds better than brown, doesn't it, that? Kaikoura stone. We've got more receipts here for DPF clean and regen, typical diesel. Yep, DPF regen, EGR. Very good, right. We've got a load of Welsh MOTs as well. Well, I think it's only had 2 owners this then. One in Wales and one in Lancashire. Right, so the history's pretty good then, we know that. So I think what I need to do then is give this a service, a fresh MOT, 4 new tyres. See what I mean about the cost running away with themselves. Before you know it, this is going to owe me £10,000, but I think it's worth at least 12, possibly a little bit more. But now, I think we need to give it a drive, don't we? Get out on the road and make sure it's all right. The 4-wheel drive system on this is like a Haldex system. I need to make sure that it doesn't snatch on the back. So I'll drive around the car park first and do a figure of 8 and see that it doesn't snatch. Right, buckle up then first. My handbrake works. Raise me up a little bit. There we go. First gear then. So we're going to drive around the Wonder Grip van first. Do a little figure of 8 and make sure we're all right. Well, straight away, it isn't snatching. That's a good sign. Feels quite nice, this actually. All right, we'll make a move then. Hit the road. Well, my heated seat's definitely working. It's all right, toasty bottom. Clutch feels all right actually. It's nice and light. We're getting quite a long list with this car, aren't we? I've just remembered the bit of paint work, so we're into a couple £100 for that, £1,000 for tyres, I guess, or 800 quid. Service, MOT, possibly rear brake disc and pads, and what else are we on with? I'll speak to my mechanics as well and get to sort out that heat shield rattle. It can't be much. Something just wants adjusting, I imagine, or resecuring. So far, this is all right. We've got start-stop, so I assume that means it's... I assume that's ULEZ, is it? Should have AdBlue as well, shouldn't it? Not that I like that, but it does open up my target market a little bit, doesn't it? We've got cruise control, Bluetooth. Right, foot down then. Make sure it doesn't smoke. This is only the TD4, so I think it's 177 horsepower. I was kind of dreading this manual gearbox because most of the time I just can't be bothered driving a manual, but it's a bit like that Discovery Sport I filmed with recently. Actually quite a nice box to use. It's quite tight. And it drives very well. Doesn't clunk or knock over bumps or lumps in the road. It's all pretty good. And it feels quite responsive really. Doesn't feel laggy in any way. That'll be its brand new £911 turbo, I guess, won't it? Yeah, I don't hate this. I think the originality of this will sell it. The fact that it's so clean and original. Hopefully I can find somebody who appreciates the colour combination and doesn't want a black with a black pack. No pan roof. Any sunglasses for me? No. There are no goodies in this one. Oh, we've got a loyalty card here for the Red Rose hand car wash and valeting sites, wherever that is. We're 3 away from a free one. And I thought I didn't have any goodies. Let me just sting this a little bit then. There's no wheel bearing noise or drivetrain noise, it's all quite refined really. They do drive well, these, you know. No wonder my brother loves his. Interestingly, you know, my mum's Lexus NX, which is the second one she's had, was in its Lexus stock put for a service a couple of weeks ago. So my brother lent her his Evoque, and then I picked him up and went to work. But my mum, who'd had an Evoque for a year or so, when she got back into that one, she said the size was better than the NX, it was easier for it to park and all that sort of stuff. But the quality was nowhere near as high as the Lexus, which I knew already. It's just interesting for other kind of non-car people to comment. Well, it's not smoking this at all. We're all alright, I think. Brakes feel quite sharp. Right, let me crack on with this then. Let me run it down to my mechanics. Order 4, I think we'll go with Nexen or Avon or something middle of the road. I don't want to go mad and start putting Pirellis on it and stuff. Still need to make some profit, but I'm not putting land sales on either. So we'll do that, and then I'll catch up with you in, give me 10 days. I've got to get this booked in the paint shop. Give me 10 days and I should have a nice clean Evoque with 4 brand new tyres. Right, I'll see you then. And we're back in my brown Evoque. Sorry, Kaikoura Stone. It's brown, isn't it? Let's face it, it is a brown car. Anyway, it's all done now and prepared for sale, so let me tell you what happened. Do you think I've massively overspent on this one? Do you? I have. After we last spoke, I took this down to my mechanics for a full engine service using genuine parts, 4 matching tyres, a clean MOT, and I asked them to sort out that rattle. Do you remember occasionally it would rattle when I started it up? From the back somewhere, I presumed it was a heat shield, and luckily for me, it was. They did that, they resecured it, it passed its MOT with not a single advisory item. I put 4 brand new Nexen tyres on it, which are kind of a middle of the road tyre. They're a decent brand really. I didn't want to go all out and start putting Pirelli Scorpions on it. I didn't want to completely lose the plot. But I thought 4 matching Nexens, that'll do the job. They're not land sales, evergreens or triangles, so I haven't completely cut corners. My mechanic also updated the online service record with OOSH, Online Service History JLR, whatever it's called. So we're all good to go. Sadly though, I did have quite a large bill. 4 tyres and all that sort of stuff. Don't come cheap. After that, I picked it up from there and took it to the body shop. Now on this occasion, I used a place called Stratton Smart, who I've been using for several years now. They did that front bumper corner for me. If you remember, it was a little bit scuffed and it damaged the black plastic arch. So they painted it for me and then they remoulded and reshaped the black plastic, I think using heat. They've done a nice subtle repair to it and you'd never know. Looks as good as new. From there then, I took it over to the lads at Tameside Detailing for a full clean. It wasn't completely hanging or anything, this car, but it did need a good wash. And I got it back from them, and it looked like a new penny. From there, I took it back to work and I fitted some new High Peak Autos plates. I didn't like the old Pinkstone MG plates, so I thought I'd treat it to a fresh set of High Peak Autos plates, including a large rear. An oversized rear just works really well on a Range Rover, whether it's a Sport, a full fat, or a little Evoque. Once the plates were fitted, I took some photographs of it. Turn off my heated seat there because my bottom is on fire. And I've got this advertised for £12,995, which is a bit more than I thought it would do. But I had a good look on Australia this morning, and I think it'll do 13 grand, you know. So I thought, why not? You've got to make hay while the sun shines, haven't you? As they say. What are we waiting for here? Somebody in a bright yellow Picanto. Saying that, it's probably about 50 horsepower. They probably haven't got the power to pull out. It's fine, we're not in a rush, are we? We're having a nice time, aren't we? Aren't we? There we go, right. Now we're talking. If you remember, I paid 8.5 grand for this car, so if I can get anywhere near 12,995, that should leave me with quite a healthy profit margin. How healthy? Well, let's find out, shall we? All right then, here is as good a place as any. Let's work out what I've spent. In fact, we'll work backwards. So, let me get my calculator out. If we get 12,995 for it, 12,995 less the 8.5 I paid for the car, so we've got a gross profit margin of 4,495, which is very healthy, I won't lie. Now, my bill at my mechanics was, let me get my picture of the bill up. Oh yeah, right. £989 and 12 pence. So 989, 12 pence. This profit margin's eroding, isn't it? Then my bill at my paint shop was £150 plus VAT, so £180 there for that bumper corner and plastic repair. £70 at the valeters, £25 on some number plates. I think that's it. So if I can get £12,995 for it, then I will have made a profit of £3,230 and 2 fat ladies, 88. Which is pretty good going, isn't it? I was thinking this was a 12 grand car, not a, what am I trying to do? Handbrake. I was thinking this was a 12 grand car, not a 13 grand car, but I'm only going off what's out there. And it does drive particularly well now, and it's nice and clean, in good condition. So it's prepped well, really. Well, I think that's about it. One piece of advice then, if you're looking for a Range Rover Evoque, try and go for an early 2.2 litre turbo diesel. They're far more reliable than the later 2 litres. Right, next on the list then is a very cheap Range Rover Evoque L322 that I bought for just £2,600. This one was a 3.6 litre TD V8 and it had done around 100,000 miles. Let's see what it's like. Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Well, today you join me at Keel Services, where I stopped off for an overpriced coffee, and we're heading down to a place called Hinckley in Leicestershire to pick up something quite interesting. I got a message the other day from a guy called Dave on Instagram, and he offered me a 2007 Range Rover Vogue. I don't know why he came to me with an old Range Rover, do you? He sent me some photographs of the car and it looked really nice. What appealed most is that it looks completely genuine. It's a 3-owner car and it's just completely standard. No privacy glass, standard wheels, no silly chrome door handle covers. You know, it's basically not a Halford special, and that really appealed to me. Now, interestingly, he said that he'd been offered £2,450 from We Buy Any Car, and he said I'd rather it went to a better home, somebody like me, and also he said I could do with a few £100 more. So I offered £2,600 for it, and he accepted. It's a 2007 Vogue in Santorini black. It's only done 99,000 miles and it's got full service history. In fact, he said when he was going through the service history, he added up all the receipts and somebody had spent over £16,000 on this car. Doesn't say a lot for reliability, does it? And this is something I always preach, but I suppose thinking about it, somebody spent the equivalent of a brand new Dacia Sandero Stepway, which starts at £16,000, just maintaining this old Range Rover. I think I'd rather have the Range Rover, wouldn't you? I'm quite excited to see this. We're about an hour and a half away. I'm just waiting for my brother's silly electric car to finish charging, and then we'll be there. Now what I'm thinking of doing here, guys, is replacing Vet9. Now, Vet9 is my old 2002 Range Rover Vogue 4.4 petrol. What I'm thinking of doing, that one's done 143,000 miles. I'm thinking of, there's one there, nice L405. I'm so easily distracted, you know. What I'm thinking of doing is selling Vet9 for probably the same sort of figure as this, to be honest. I'm sure it's worth that sort of money. That's a pre-facelift model, which are quite desirable these days. Selling that one and then replacing it with this 2007 Vogue. I'm just thinking, as much as I like Vet9, and I really do like that 4.4 litre V8 petrol, this just makes a bit more sense. It's done 45,000 miles less, it's 5 years newer, it's got an auxiliary port so I can play my music, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, if someone spent £16,000 on it, I might be able to get 2 or 3 years without spending a penny. Well, I've just bought the 2007 Range Rover then from Dave, who was a really nice chap actually. So I've just driven it around the corner so I'm not filming on his driveway. It looks absolutely immaculate, so I'm quite pleased with it so far. So, would you like a quick tour? It is really nice and original, so there's no clear glass. We've got the original fins there. They haven't been replaced with chrome. There are no chrome door mirrors or door handle covers. It is just completely nice and original. The rear tyres are very good. They are Goodyear Wranglers on about 6mm of tread. The wheels are in good nick as well, as are the brake discs. Moving to the front, I think, well, we're on Pirelli Scorpions on the front and they're a little bit cracked. They will need to be replaced. They're close to the limit actually. The front wheels could do with a refurb, so I might get this over to Prestige, get them to refurb the wheels. But it's a really nice clean example. Even came with the plate. Old RRZ plate. So yeah, we've got another Pirelli on this side which needs to be replaced, so I'll stick 2 front tyres on it. The bodywork's very tidy. There's no rust that I can see because, I mean, this is getting on in age now. It's now, what, 17, 18 years old. They often rust around the tailgate and the rear arches, but this one hasn't. It's got a tow bar, which I don't like, but I suppose I'll probably leave it on, to be honest. Now, the back arches is another area where they seem to rot. This has just started to, but it's nowhere near, well, it's nowhere near as bad as some of the ones I've seen. So that's all pretty good. There's loads of service history. Someone's actually made a spreadsheet, like an Excel spreadsheet type thing, and detailed all the jobs this has ever had. and yet total something like £15,800. So I'm hoping that means that I won't have to spend an awful lot on it. I'm not sure if it's ever had a gearbox service, so I'll get that done. That'll be £250. And I've noticed my heated seat doesn't work. As soon as you turn it on, the two lights light up on the heated seat button, but they go off immediately. Well, after a couple of seconds, they just they go off. So I'm not sure what that is. I'll have to get it fixed though, because it's freezing. But yeah, it's in really good condition, isn't it? The headline is not sagging, it's nice and clean. Doesn't smell of cigarettes or anything. A little bit of corrosion there on that rear arch, but nothing bad at all. Moving around to the back. Boot struts are fine. The headline is just starting to peel there actually, but I think I can probably catch that in time. Probably try and pin that back in position. Yeah, just nice and clean, isn't it? I think with a few little jobs done, I can get this looking even better. Let me fire her up then. Get some heat on. Now the interior condition's really good because, well, there's just no wear on anything really. And it's just a little bit more, well, it's more modern than the old Vet 9, so it should just be a little bit easier to live with, I think. Like, for example, we've got a reverse camera and auxiliary and stuff. So we've only done 99,000 miles, so it is nice and low, really. No warning lights on, only low fuel. And it does sound quite sweet. Turn my heated steering wheel on, there we go. I think what I'm going to do then is go and fill it full of premium diesel and have a nice steady drive home. Then, I think crack on with some jobs. Like I say, I'll check the service history again and see if it's ever had a gearbox service. If it hasn't, I may as well get that done. If we look through the service portfolio here, okay, so it's come from Land Rover Colchester originally, and then it moved to Ipswich, then in Suffolk. So, another one at 13, then 21, then 25, that's all good. Then it went back to Land Rover Ipswich at 29, and 51, back to Colchester, 71. Quite big intervals there, to be fair, but better than nothing. Last one there was at 85. We've done 99. When was its last service then? So another one at Lucas Land Rover Colchester, 91. Then a non-Land Rover dealer there in 20 at 93. Another one there without the stamp at 95. That was done in December 22. And by the looks of it, that's its last one. So I think I'll give it a full service anyway. Just keep it up to date. That's pretty much it then, really. We've got a decent car and probably a replacement for Vet 9. So this is what happens when I try and turn my heated seat on. The lights come on and then go off, unfortunately. And we'll just turn the heater on for now. Now, I think this could do with a good run, to be honest, because I've only driven it, well, like 150 yards, and when I came to a stop there was a load of smoke under it. I don't know whether that's the diesel preheater, or I don't know, a DPF regen or something. I haven't got a clue. But I think I'll brim it full of decent fuel and give it a nice steady run back up north and hope for the best. I think the trouble is when cars like this just potter around town, they get all clogged up, so they need a good old blast out, which is exactly what I intend to do now. We're about 2 hours from home. I'm crying out for some diesel, so I want to go and you see the smoke in the background? Slightly concerning, isn't it, that? Oh, there we go. Like I'm on stars in their eyes. I'm gonna go and get some fuel now, and then head home. Tonight? If it makes it. Yeah, tonight, Matthew. I'm gonna be stranded. It's freezing today. Absolutely freezing. We've got what sounds like a sticking rear cap. I'm not complaining, by the way, because I've paid £2,600 for this car, which is a bargain. And it's it's a 17, 18-year-old Range Rover, so I'm expecting a few teething problems. But there's what sounds like a stick-in brake caliper or something. And yeah, that smoke. I remember my old TD6 smoking like that. It was the diesel, it was the Webasto diesel preheater. You'd be sat in traffic sometimes in the winter, and you just see a load of smoke. It was like an old, what were they called? Old mammoth steam engine thing. Apart from that, though, I'm well impressed with it, really. Feels very tight, I do love VET9 to be honest, but it does feel quite sloppy and old, whereas this feels much newer and tighter. I'll just be happy when I've got a full tank of diesel and I'm on the motorway. I think tomorrow I'll run it to my mechanics for a full engine service, get them to check it over. I think it's got a short MOT as well. I think it runs out next month. I'll get that done and I'll book it in for a gearbox service. And yeah, take it from there, I suppose. So far, so good. My heater's getting nice and warm. My steering wheel's getting nice and toasty. Dave was really honest with me when he was describing this car to me, and he said occasionally, now I think this is either diff or transfer box because I've had it before. He said occasionally if you're pulling out of a junction, going left or right, you can feel the back end kind of snatching or grabbing. And I've had that before on my very first L405 or second L405, I can't remember. But I think it was the transfer box. I think it needed a service. So this hasn't done it to me. And Dave did say that it doesn't do it every single time, but just, keep your eye on it. And also he said sometimes the steering feels a little bit notchy. So I'm not sure, it might need new power steering fluid or might be a problem with the rack or something, I don't know. We can get it checked over though, can't we? But for £2,600, it is an awful lot of car for the money. All my windows, oh, I'll tell you what. We'll have to send those back to him. We've got a pair of polarised Wayfarers here, look at that. I'll pop them in the post to him tomorrow. We've currently got a range of just 24 miles, so I do need some diesel, quickly. This low winter sun is dazzling. Well, she pulls well, the gearbox changes nicely. No real issues so far, guys. Something else that's positive to report, whenever you go over potholes or any bumps in the road, there are no knocks or bangs. It's all nice and solid. I think this 3.6 litre turbo diesel V8 produces something like 272 horsepower, but it's quite a torquey motor. So when you put your foot down, we ought to be pinned into his seats. Oh yeah, there she goes. You know what I could actually do with this? Keep it for 1 year and document my year with it for a video. Loads of people are so cautious and worried about buying these older cars. That might be a good little series. Or, just film little bits here and there, edit it, and then put the video out in 12 months' time. There's an idea. But it pulls well. There's no wheel wobble. It's not pulling to one side. Brakes are good. Acceleration's strong. All the ingredients there. My mirrors fold in, that's nice. Right, so here we are then at a nice little BP. We're going to stick some premium diesel in it if I can find it. Might be out of luck here, Is there any good diesel? Oh, BP Ultimate diesel, that'll do. I think this old girl needs all the help she can get. Right, I'll tank it with BP Ultimate, see how much she takes. I think this has got an 80 litre tank, so this is going to cost me £110 at least. I'm quite happy with it though, apart from the smoke. We're only at £40. Going to be here a while then, aren't we? £65. It's a very slow pump, this. This was very low on fuel then, wasn't it? 72 litres. 130. How big's this tank? There we go, I can hear it. We're about to click. Oh yes. Oh yeah. I hate diesels. Fuel nozzle's always greasy. Stinks. Right, so let me go and pay then. And then we're going to hit the road and I'll give you an update later. Hopefully with good news. Hopefully it won't be on the side of the M6 stranded, calling for a breakdown. Oh, there you are. What a lovely little spot for a breakdown. I don't mean of the vehicular kind, by the way. The car's been spot on. I got back last night and I was going to do an update, but it was dark and I was tired because I've been stuck in traffic for hours. It took me like 4 hours to get back from Leicestershire. What should have been a 2-hour trip just wasn't. There was traffic on the M6, the 56, everywhere. It was a nightmare. But I'm happy to report the car was absolutely spot on. Apart from, of course, the radio flickering on and off every 5 seconds. But I learned to live with that. I parked this up at work last night and then hopped in mine. And then this morning when I got back to work, this fired up right on the button. It was perfect. Even though it was covered in thick snow and frost, it fired straight up. I've been very proactive this morning. I've already ordered a service kit for it, so this is going to have a full engine service, and I've also ordered 2 new tyres. Now the tyres I've gone with, I've ordered, right now it's currently on Pirelli Scorpions on the front, but they're a little bit bald and cracked. So I've ordered 2 new Goodyear Wranglers like this, so it'll have a matching set of Goodyear Wranglers. Now, naively I didn't get a price to be honest, but I can't imagine they're too expensive. They're not huge wheels, are they? I think they're 19s. So I'll get that done, the full engine service done. I think I'll wax oil underneath of it and then give it a clean MOT. I left it running on the forecourt this morning just to defrost, which didn't take too long to be honest, but after a couple of minutes there was a load of smoke coming from the underside, and it's definitely coming from that Webasto diesel preheater because it smells very, not like paraffin, but it's definitely not, I don't know, it's got a different scent to it. I'm not worried about it because that's just how they operate. I'm pretty sure it is just the diesel preheater. What I'm going to do though is try and buy a new remote control for it. It should have a little plastic fob with 2 buttons on and off for the diesel preheater. And obviously that's been lost over the years. So I'm going to have a look online and see if I can order a replacement. I'm pretty sure they're fairly accessible. I hope so anyway. So I'll try and order one of those. And that's about it really. So I'm going to head down to my mechanics now, ask them to fit the 2 new tyres and give the engine a service and give it a clean MOT. Sort the wax oil out, and yeah, I might order 2 new boot struts actually. I don't have total confidence in those. There are a couple of little cosmetic things I'd like to do. I'm going to remove this TDV8 badge because that isn't factory spec. I'd also like to replace the Land Rover badge here because it started to corrode. And I might remove the tow bar. What do you think? I don't really like tow bars, they're a bit unsightly, and you always catch your shin in it as you're walking past. But having said that, it does sort of strengthen up the back end, doesn't it? Maybe I'll leave it. Could always buy a car trailer or something, couldn't I? As I mentioned at the start of this video, I think I might retire Vet 9, but before I do, I think it'll have one last blast out. I've been threatening to take it to Marrakesh, so I might do that. It'd be quite a cool little road trip that, don't you think? Thinking about it, that's probably one for the new year, so stay tuned. Once I've picked this up from my mechanics in a couple of days, I still need to get the gearbox serviced and I still need to fix that radio. It's really irritating. So I'll have to call my car audio specialist guy and drop it off with him and see if he can cure it. I had the exact same issue on my Giverny Green Range Rover and he couldn't get to the bottom of it because every time I dropped it off with him, it didn't fault. Whereas with this, it faults every 5 seconds, so it should be quite easy to diagnose. So I think that's about it. I just wanted to show off my new to me, very cheap Range Rover TD V8. As you can see then, it was quite a nice car. I was planning to do a part 2 with that after I'd got it all sorted, but in the end I ended up selling it to a mate of mine who's still got it. In fact, I drove it yesterday. It's a really nice car. So I had 2 new tyres. I think it needed the front tyres replaced and I had that done. There was an issue with the battery kept draining, so I put a new battery on it, and the battery drain was being caused by the climate control panel. So I went to a scrapyard and got a new climate control panel for £30, and that cured the battery drain. Then I had a service done on it, had a gearbox service done, so I probably spent about maybe £1,500 on it, but I think for £4,000 it's a really solid example. The next one on the list then was another cheap L322, only this time it was the 4.2 litre supercharged V8, which is a gem of an engine. It's an old Jaguar engine and it's quite reliable actually, well for JLR anyway, it is quite a reliable engine. And again I paid just £2,500 for this, only this time I wasn't quite so lucky. This has got to be one of the biggest dogs I've ever bought. Somebody had fiddled around with it and put a silly exhaust on it, it had no MOT, it just needed an awful lot of work. So yeah, anyway, feast your eyes on this. Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Well, I've done something stupid. Very stupid. Incredibly stupid. In fact, I'd never recommend anyone do this under any circumstances. I've bought the cheapest supercharged Range Rover in the whole of the UK. Why? I don't really know at this point. I guess it's for your entertainment, which is a bit weird, isn't it that? Maybe I'm just a masochist. Anyway, let me explain what happened. I got a message a couple of weeks ago from a lad called Harry who runs the YouTube channel Cars and Custard, and he told me that he'd got a friend who had a supercharged Range Rover 2006 in Buckingham Blue that he no longer wanted. Apparently I must have a bit of a name for myself as being a Range Rover geek. Don't know quite how that happened, do you? And because I'm a Range Rover anorak, he asked me if I wanted to buy it. And to be honest, I don't think I ever got back to him actually. I've got too many projects on the go, to be honest, that all need finishing, and this one didn't even have a valid MOT. A couple of days passed and to be honest, I forgot all about it. Then I was scrolling through Facebook one day and one of those forums that I've joined, which I'm gonna exit to be honest because it really winds me up. It's called something like Range Rovers for sale in the UK or Range Rovers for sale worldwide, and it is full of losers. Everybody on that forum is an armchair expert. Nobody actually wants to buy anything that's for sale, but they all want to tell somebody how wrong they've got the price. Always. I'll see a car that's listed for sale, then I'll read through the comments, and every single one is just an insult to the seller. It really winds me up. That Facebook group, for me, represents everything that's wrong with the internet. The other day I saw a cheap early L322 for sale, and it was for about £1,000. It was cheap, it was pretty much scrap value. And one of the comments said, I might be interested in this. Could you send me a video of it running? No. Go to Range Rover and buy a new one. Why is it that people at the very bottom of the car food chain are the most entitled? The poor seller, who's probably not as jaded as I am, will have spent the next half an hour videoing it and then sending it to him, all to get either ghosted completely, no reply, or 2 days later something like, well, my wife said I can't really. Grow a pair, seriously. I'm going to have to change the subject, it just winds me up. Anyway, I saw this same supercharged Range Rover for sale on that forum. I assumed one of the gimps on there had snapped it up because when I checked 2 days later it had gone. So I thought, oh well, I've missed out, no big deal. Then about a week later I got a direct message from the actual owner of the car on my Instagram. And we had a chat about it, and he told me that he'd serviced it recently, he'd replaced the air suspension compressor, he'd had it to Land Rover about 6 months ago and it had new brake pipes and new discs and pads. So it all sounded alright really. Yes, it needs some work, but there were a spare set of supercharged wheels with it, and it also needs some suspension work at the back. I think it's only rubber bushings and stuff like that, so I hope nothing too sinister. I agreed to buy it and he even dropped it off for me on the back of his trailer. Now I paid just $2.5 grand for this, which by any measure is cheap for a supercharged Range Rover. Now the 4.2 litre supercharged V8 from Jag is one of the more reliable Range Rover engines. I'm told it needs a bit of paint work as well because there's some rust in the usual places, so it is a bit of a project and I'm not entirely sure what to do with it. It's been left for me on my car park and I have seen it from a distance, but I purposely haven't looked around it because I didn't want to ruin the fun. So I thought today you and I could have a look around it and perhaps you could advise me what I should do with it. I was thinking I could spend £2,500 on it, so it'd owe me £5 grand, and that would still be cheap for a sorted supercharged Range Rover. Or if it's too far gone, just sell it as it is. I'm fairly sure I'd get my $2.5 grand back. Right, let's go and have a look, shall we? Right, well here she is. It looks black, but it isn't. It's Buckingham blue. In fact, back in 2007, my boss at the time, I was working for an internet company in Puerto Banús, and my boss at the time, an English fella, bought one of these brand new in Buckingham blue. And because I was obsessed with Range Rovers, he used to have an X5 before that. As soon as he came to work in that car that day when he picked it up, I went downstairs to have a look at it. And I said, oh wow, that's beautiful, isn't it? And he went, yeah, it gets me from A to B, doesn't it? And I vowed from that point on, if ever I become successful and get money, that I wouldn't be a bellend and say comments like that. Gets me from A to B. It was a €100,000 car. Anyway, feast your eyes on this little bad boy. There is quite a lot of work to do there, isn't there? This is why I need your advice. I don't know whether to... I've got butterflies a bit because I'm quite excited about the project. But do I spend a fortune on this car or not? I think it's a little bit too far gone, to be honest. Because straight away I'm noticing the headlamps would buff up. There are a couple of scuffs on the bumper that they would probably buff back. From the looks of it, somebody's drilled into the front grille there and the wings to fit, I guess, those headlamp grills. Why would you drill into the wing of your Range Rover? Also, those side steps have got to come off, and they're the wrong wheels. They're off a later car, I think. I think they're off a facelift L322. I think. Should know these things, shouldn't I, been a Range Rover geek? Little bit of a dent on the front wheel arch. Some rust on the rear wheel arches, little dent on the bonnet there. Right, I think we need to go and have a look around this, don't we? And use our own eyes. Are you excited? I'm strangely excited. Just thought if it were 2006, I would have a very enviable driveway, wouldn't I, with this 05ML and my 06 Range Rover. Oh dear, look at that rust. Okay then, let me walk you around this. You're gonna have to use your imagination here, guys. Now, straight away, I'm thinking it desperately needs those window tints removing. It's even got them on the front, which I just hate. This is what happens when a Range Rover falls into the wrong hands. We've got decent brake discs, and on this side we've got a Nexon, which is a good brand. That looks fairly new, that's on about 7mm of tread. We've got a load of corrosion here, but that doesn't look too deep, to be fair. It's mainly sort of on the surface, so that could be fixed. It's had those light grille things there. All these little marks would buff back. Having said that, it's got to be painted anyway. Quite a bit of corrosion there around the wheel arch, as they always seem to do. I can paint the door handles. But yeah, they're the wrong They're the wrong wheels, aren't they? In fact, those wheels don't even match. How did I not spot that sooner? I need to take off the side steps. There's a crack there in the wing mirror. I mean, I can get away with some of these bits, can't I? But yeah, they've drilled into the front wings there for those lamp guards. So I think I'd be inclined to just order 2 new wings, or 2, you know, second-hand replacement wings in Buckingham Blue if possible, and a new grille. That solves that little problem. Brake discs look new there, Brembo brakes, and that is the baldest thing I've ever seen. It's a Pirelli Scorpion, but it's bald. The headlamps would buff back. We've got a dent there. Yeah, I think I may as well just look for some new wings, hadn't I? On this side we've got quite a flat looking Pirelli Scorpion to match, and it's equally bald. That wants replacing. Remove the side steps. The only drama is when you remove these side steps, then you have holes here where the mud flaps were. That'll have to be filled and painted. On this side we should have a matching Nexon. Oh no, we don't, because that's a different wheel again, isn't it? So we've got 3 wheels like that. Lots of little marks here that would buff out. Bit of lack of peel, more corrosion. Crack there in the tail light. Oh, look at those exhausts. I had a feeling this would be the case. The previous owner said that it sounds really good, and that made me think, hang on a minute. That's got some Larry exhaust system. It is also LPG converted, which I don't like personally. Just think if you can't afford to run a petrol Range Rover, then don't buy one. Here it's missing its reflector. It should have a red reflector like that side. That's not expensive, I can soon sort that. And we've got some tailgate rust there. They always seem to go. Again, I could just find a replacement tailgate in Buckingham Blue. I bet that's not too dear, you know. I need to be clever with this, because if I'm not careful I could spend a fortune. Oh, wow. Need a new check strap because that one's broke. Unless I can tighten that up. Sounds like a Citroen, doesn't it? Well, hang on a minute. The previous owner was a Dwarf. Got some wear there on the seats. There's no rips though, it would all clean up, wouldn't it? That steering wheel's disgusting. Believe it or not, that should be cream on the top. I actually did this once before in a, let me go in. Ugh. I actually did this once before on I think a Discovery 2. I got some leather paint off the internet, masked it up and then painted it and it looked like new. So I could do that, or I could just buy a new steering wheel for it off eBay. We've got lots of paperwork here for it. Down there is my little LPG gauge. So, service history. I guarantee, because this was a very expensive car when it was new, it'll start off quite good. There we go, Vogue SE supercharged. This was some car in its day, probably 100 grand's worth. So the PDI was done at 5 miles at Lancaster Land Rover in Reading. Nice fountain pen there. Like a fountain pen. The first one then was done by Lancaster at 18,000 miles, then another one at 32 by the same garage, then another one at 47, same garage, and then 70, same garage, and that's where it all ends. This is just typical Range Rover, this. So the first owner was a millionaire, obviously, looked after it until 2012 at 70. He probably then got rid of it in 2013-ish, and then sold it to somebody who wanted to run around in a Range Rover but couldn't really afford to run a Range Rover. So they didn't bother servicing it then probably until an engine light came on, which is why they've serviced it and changed the spark plugs. That would be my guess. And I bet that's not too far from the truth. Then another one done at 150. Now the chap that sold it to me said that he did a service on it about 7,000 miles ago, so I'll do another one anyway. But this is why they go wrong. They just fall into the wrong hands. Had the original owner kept it and just kept looking after it, then it would not look like this now. It just wouldn't. So service book, we've got some sunglasses here that are as broken as this car. All the old handbooks. I'll turn this away just in case I catch somebody's name. Now we've got an invoice here for the window tints. Supply and fit Pentagon smoke tint. And it was still on its original reg plate then. I think they'll be coming off because I don't like them. Don't want some sort of MTV Cribs pimpmobile, do we? We want originality. But we've got all the previous MOTs there, so that's all quite good. We've got a bill of sale here. So right. So in 2012, it was sold, I can't tell you the name, but it's come from quite a nice part of London in 2012. Then it was sold for £15,000 to somebody up north who probably put the silly exhaust on it and LPG converted it and put the silly tints on it and all that sort of carry on. Well, there is plenty of history there, to be fair. Plenty more receipts anyway. Up here we've got a sunglass holder that doesn't work, which is why the sunglasses are there. Nice sunroof. I daren't try that in case it jams open. This would actually all clean up quite nicely. Let's have a look around it. I was told this door card's loose. I was told there's a spare in the back because there's an airbag light on and it's something to do with the airbag that's built into this door card. So there is a replacement part for that. There it is, voila, one I made earlier. There's the parcel shelf. Now we've got rear media as well. This was some car in its day, and I keep saying that phrase, but we've got a new master switch there for the door, some spark plugs, brake pads, a remote, some more receipts here. Right, this is the receipt from Land Rover then for the brake discs. Listers, Droitwich. Well, there's extra history there for my little folder. Some Euro car parts, bits and pieces there. Also found a jerry can full of treasures. Moving around the back, we've got right, okay then, we've got the lamp guards, which go like so, which I don't like, so I think they're getting binned. And the front one, predictably, which is why somebody's taken it off, is broken. You know what, I could save myself some money by... no, I'm cutting corners. I was going to say I could save myself some money if I just bought some new lamp guards and then I could keep the wings and the grille. But I'm just cutting corners there. Somebody's had this to bits, haven't they? Right, well that's the other wheel that matches the set that's on it. They're the originals then, I think, aren't they, which need refurbishing, and they desperately need tyres. Look at the state of those. Well, that one looks pretty decent. Right, I think we've seen enough there. Just noticed some lacquer peel there on the door. You could go mad with this, and I don't intend to. I just want to get it looking nice-ish. No point doing a bare metal respray on a 160,000 mile Range Rover, is there? Okay. Cover up all that paperwork before I get fined. Should we fire up? Let's see what this monstrosity sounds like. Ugh. Ugh. Okay. Low screen wash. 0.1 miles per gallon. Pretty good, isn't it? Oh yeah. Oh no. Listen to that. This, if you know anything about me, this is not my cup of tea at all. I like originality. Not this. You ready? No thank you. I need to find then somewhere either an exhaust specialist or an original exhaust on eBay. HDC fault, system not available. To be fair, this could be a dodgy battery. You did tell me that it needed a new battery, so I'm surprised it started. There's my airbag light that I was telling you about. Well, It's ticking over quite nicely, in fairness. Down here we've got a cigarette lighter that's never been used. That's always a good sign. It's never been smoked in. Under here we've got, oh, Chinese made. Oh, look at this. See, it's not all bad, is it? We've got some chocolate digestives here and a spanner. For a minute then, you'd all thought I'd bought a lemon, didn't you? We've got a nodding head Rodney from Only Fools and Horses. I feel like a plonker right now, to be fair, for buying this. There is quite a big to-do list with this car, isn't there? I've just noticed as well, I don't know if it's my eyes or not. Oh, hang on a minute. That's why there's a new window switch in the back, because only the driver's side works. The longer I do this job, the more I realise people's descriptions are vastly different. This was described to me as being, and I quote, quite nice. There's nothing quite nice about it. It'd have been quite nice 10 years ago, but not now. I think what I should do then is formulate some sort of shopping list, don't you? In fact, let me see if this drives. I'm not going to go far before you call the police, because there's no MOT on it, I know that. I'm just going to take you around this car park very slowly, because we've got low air in that tyre. Just want to make sure that it does actually drive, which it does. This steering wheel's horrendous. What have I done? I'm not painting this steering wheel, I'm just going to buy a new one, because it's disgusting. I'm not parking it in Bay 13, I've had enough bad luck, thank you. It's not good that you've got a car that makes you jump, is it? Driving along, minding your own business, then shut up. Well, my sensors work, but my camera doesn't. Okay. Should we try the suspension for a laugh? You ready? Range Rover refinement. I said Range Rover refinement. I've had quite a few of these and I don't think that that's normal. You know what? I've given up with that, I've had enough. Check side light. Okay. It's hissing like somebody's thrown a dart at a balloon. Okay, so on my little shopping list, we need 2 front wings in Buckingham blue. The headlamps are fine, they just need a buff. I need to buy a new steering wheel. That shouldn't be too difficult. Gimas. Huh, I can hear myself think again. I should look for a new tailgate actually, because if I can find a tailgate with a working reverse camera, that solves 2 or 3 problems in one. I need to get the wheels down to Prestige and get them stripped, dipped, powder coated, order 4 tyres for them, then get it trailered to my mechanic so they can get it to pass an MOT, sort the suspension work out, give it a service, change the spark plugs, I may as well, they're in the back, fit the new master switch, fit the new door card and get the airbag light out. Then we would have a fresh service, MOT, 4 new tyres. It would then be in driving condition. Then it's bodywork. Oh, I can add to my shopping list a new rear light, can't I? Supercharged rear light. There's quite a bit to do then, isn't there? I know I said as we were driving down here that I wanted your advice because I didn't know where to go with it. I didn't know whether to just sell it as it is or fix it. And truth be told, I still don't know. I know what I should do. I know what I should do. I should walk up, I should run away from it quickly. But I do quite like them. So I think I'm just going to get on with it. I think that's what I'll do. Right, well, give me a few months because this one's going to take me a considerable amount of time, effort and money. In case you're wondering what happened to that cheap Range Rover, I made a massive mistake with that. It was just too far gone. I could have easily spent £5,000 on that car and it still wouldn't have been nice. So what I did was cut my losses. I sold it to a mate of mine for a loss, and then he sold it on eBay for a loss. So it wasn't a great money-making exercise, really. I was going to say lesson learned, but that's not true. On to the next one then. Actually, before we get on to the next one, I'm interested to see if that Range Rover is still on the road. I wonder whether anybody actually got it through an MOT. Let's check it out then. So, let's do a quick car vertical check on it. Now, because I'm a very sad individual, I remember the reg off the top of my head. RE06WLF. I hate myself. Why do I remember that? This will just tell us if it's currently got an MOT. Somebody must have spent an awful lot of money on that car. Oh, this is interesting. Right, we've got an amber warning here for damage. It might have been written off. I think, honestly, as much as I love Range Rovers, that would have been a blessing. It was just too far gone, that car. So its last MOT was June 23 at 162,000 miles. Ah, the vehicle was marked as an insurance write-off. So it was written off in May 24. Oh well, at least we know. Right, on to the next one then. This was a very cheap L322 that I bought. Yes, I know what you're thinking. Another one. PX12 FBC or something it is.
Yeah.
Not even funny, is it? Oh dear.
Nice, that one.
Before anyone accuses me of doing repetitive content, this is a bit different. This is a facelift 2012 model, and it features a 4.4 litre turbo diesel V8, unlike the 4.2 petrol and unlike the 3.6 diesel, so there is a difference. Trust me. Also, this is a Westminster, so the spec's slightly different. The Westminster models were kind of like a run-out model, so it's a slightly higher spec than a Vogue or a Vogue SE, but not quite as good as an Autobiography. So there is a difference. Anyway, let's see what it was like. Refresh my memory. Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Well, in case you hadn't picked up the many subtle hints in my previous videos, I'm a big fan of the Range Rover. I know what you're thinking. Wow, Matt, that's incredible how you've kept a lid on it for all these years. Well, what can I say? I just like to keep my opinions to myself, don't I? Anyway, yesterday I was offered a 2012 Range Rover Westminster for just £6,000. £6,000. Can anybody guess what happened next? Can you? I bought it. How could I not buy a 2012 4.4 litre turbo diesel V8 Range Rover Westminster for £6,000? The last time I bought one of these cars, that was a 2012 Westminster, and I paid £12,500 for it, and I thought that was cheap. So £6,000 really is the bargain of the century. But, and this is a big but, it's cheap for a reason. I've not seen it yet, but it's been described to me as wanting quite a bit of TLC. There's a broken light, it needs quite a bit of paint work, the wheels need refurbing, it wants a couple of tyres, it's overdue a service. Ran out of fingers there, haven't I? So there's quite a bit to be getting on with. Still, for £6,000, how could I resist? What I'm thinking is straight away, plough £2,000 into it, so it'll owe me 8, and then it should be worth 10, 11, maybe even 12, who knows? One thing I need to do though is keep my sensible head on, otherwise these costs could just run away with themselves, and I don't want that to happen because at the end of the day I need to make some profit, otherwise there's no business. Right, well let's go and have a look, shall we? I'm excited for this one. Right, well we're here, and so far so good. It looks like an awful lot of car that for £6,000. It's in Santorini metallic, as they probably all were. Not that long ago that was a very desirable car. I mean, it still is, isn't it, if you're a Land Rover lover? It just worries me when I see it there with its side steps stuck out, and it obviously needs paint down the driver's side because that's a bit of a mess. It worries me that I could be into thousands. And also I've noticed the plates on it are BCA Brighouse. Now, I don't like to see BCA plates on a car, to be honest. I just think it stinks of neglect. I'll tell you something else you can do. If you've got a Land Rover and you want to track down the service history, if you go to osh.landrover.com, type in the VIN, it'll tell us more about this car's history. So let's get the VIN number. Isn't technology good when it works? So there we go, it's a 2012 L322, we knew that already. Its last recorded service was at 96,000 miles, or 95,286 miles in 2017, at a place called Green Oval Garage in Leeds. And it had an oil filter, pollen filter, air filter, and a pre-summer check. So if we check the service history, that's not great, is it? Unless it changed to, yeah, that could be true. I'm just thinking now, when that car was new, it wouldn't have had digital service history. It would have had the old-fashioned stamped book. Then latterly it would have changed. So 2016 it had a service at 77, then 2017 it had a service at 95, both at Green Oval. It is Santorini black. I know my onions, don't I? Right. Well, we are armed with all that knowledge then. Let's go and have a wander around it. Okay. Well, from afar, it looks good. Well, I say good, it looks okay. Straight away, I don't know whether you can see this on the camera, but we've got some damage down this driver's door. There's a dent here, there's a crease there, another dent there, and it's left this scrape all the way along the side of it. It goes into the rear door where there's another dent, but you know, it hasn't broken the paint. I wonder if, with a good buff, these marks should come out because they're not very deep. And if I could get the guys in from the Dent Master company, they might be able to pop those out. That would save me probably £500 worth of paint work. I just know it's always tricky to pop dents out when they're so close to the edge of the door, because they're often strengthening pieces on the back of the panel there, so that might be a challenge, but it's worth a try. Someone's painted the door handles. Someone's painted this mirror as well, because that's all kind of orange peel effect. There's a mark here on the wing, but again that should buff out. It actually looks a lot worse than it is in reality. I think for a 10-year-old car, if that could be improved, that would be good enough. We've got the deployable side steps which are stuck out, which worries me a tad. And on the front, tyre wise, right, we've got a wheel that wants refurbing here. The tyre is an Accelera, made in Indonesia, and it looks quite old actually. It's probably on 4 or 5 mil of tread. Right, 2018 that tyre then, so it's 4 years old. They should be the same on each axle. So, on the back we've got a Continental cross contact, that's a decent tyre. That's again on 4 or 5 mil. And the age of that one, if I can see it, no, that can't be right, surely not. 2012? Definitely not, that can't be a 10-year-old tyre. Maybe I've got that wrong. We've got a little bit of rust here on the back of the rear quarter, which is quite common on an L322. And yeah, dented side. Moving around the back, we've got a smashed light lens. Can't see that being cheap, can you? And also it's missing its reflector. It should have a red reflector. Can you see that side? But then this side it's missing. Yeah, okay. It's desperately in need of some new plates. That back one, I'm surprised it passed an MOT. You can barely read it. They always rust around this top of the tailgate. It's just ever so slightly starting to go, but it's not too bad, that really. Not bad at all. The wiper's not broken, or it's not hanging down at least. Moving around this side then, we've got, oh that's not good. We've got a Pirelli on this side, so the tyres don't match. That looks old. This car straight away has been ran on a shoestring. 2015 this tyre, and it needs refurbing. So we've got odd tyres. There's a little spot of rust there, another scrape there, another little mark there. What a pity this hasn't been loved, this car, at all. Another mark there, another side step that's stuck out. And well, at least we've got matching tyres on the front. Another Accelera with a big chunk out of the sidewall there. That's 2019. You can't run a car like this on a shoestring because you're asking for trouble. So straight away it needs 4 tyres, there's a grand. Wheel refurbs, that's 200 quid. Now, it's done 134, so I would expect it to be covered in stone chips. But it's not too bad, actually. Another mark there, and it's kind of cracked the paint there, but I think I'd be quite happy with that if that would buff out and kind of touched in and refit the front bumper properly. And the washers there on the headlamp, shouldn't they have some kind of... They look like something's missing. Right, let's have a look inside then. Well, it's quite clean inside. It's got the nice light interior, which isn't too bad. The bolster's not all worn. Nice rubber mats. That's not all abused. Wants a good clean, but nothing too bad. I think it's got front tints on the front windows, which I don't like, so I'm going to have to peel that off. How are the rear arches? It's nice and clean in the back. Very clean. The headlining's not sagging. Little bit of rust here on the wheel arches, but not too bad for a car of this age. Just wants a very good clean. I'm quite pleased now that it's come to me, because what on earth? Like a crime scene, this. You don't like to find duct tape and a sheet in the back of a car that you've just bought. We've got a load liner in the back, genuine. Locking wheel nut, just wants a good clean with the Pirelli. Some signs of rust, but nothing major. The unmistakable sound of an L322. This wheel arch then is, yeah, same as the other side really. Probably caught that just in time, I suppose. And then, right. The rear view mirror's fallen down and it's there, along with the cover for it. That needs sorting out then, doesn't it? Well, I can now see why this was cheap. Oh, result. Look at that. They're the best. Once upon a time, I'd have eaten that. Not anymore. Right. Green oval, that ties up with the service history then. Try not to show you the customer's details. Right, somebody spent £1,200 there on brakes. Okay, seems expensive. Another £400 there on a service. Okay. Is there any early service history then? Early service history. We've got those last two, haven't we? But is there anything prior to that? Yeah, so there we go. That plate was on it from new, SAW. Supplied by Guy Salmon Wakefield. Barnsley Road, Wakefield. Right. We've got some then here, haven't we? Oh, right. A bit more than I thought. So, first one was done at 15,000 miles, 2013. Then again, God, he did a lot of miles, didn't he, or she? Then 30,000 miles, same year, about 7 months later. Another one at 46. It's been done every 15,000 miles by Land Rover, up to a certain point. This is what always happens with Land Rovers. Then it changes hands and they become less valuable, and then people don't look after them properly. Another one at 61, then 77, then 95, and then nada. And it's now done 134. So that's 40,000 miles without a service, which is not good, is it? They're kind of aging well, though, these, aren't they? They're not as luxurious as an L405, but they're still very nice. Let's have a look under the bonnet. CD changer, remember those? Actually, let's have a look what they were listening to. What have we got here? Deleted, I don't know who that is. Bit of Neil Diamond. Save that for my dad. What else? Now 67, now we're talking. Bit of garbage pop. Floor fillers. Oh, I'll tell you what. Between this and the caramel egg, I'm glad I bought this. What's the last one? Rick Astley. Never Gonna Give You Up. Right, sorry, I was just thinking to myself there, how much is this going to cost me? Now, I think this engine's great, the 4.4 litre turbo diesel V8, but they do suffer with oil leaks around the turbos, and that you could be into £2,000, £3,000, £4,000 to sort that out. Well, it's very dirty under here, as I imagined. And it's so tightly packed, I can't see anything, to be honest. Can't see any obvious leaks, but then I'm just kidding myself there really, because I can't see anything at all. It's missing the covers there. I should have a cover there so that leaves and stuff can't get into areas that it shouldn't. Okay, right. That doesn't tell me anything really. I think on this occasion the proof is in the pudding. I think we need to drive it. Let's fire up then. Oh, we've got the split screen here. That's a good option. Sorry, Rita. It's quite a warm day. Let's see if the aircon works then. I doubt it does, to be honest, because the way it's been looked after, I don't think it's been lavished with money. Tesco club card. Has it ever been smoked in? Oh, no, never. That's good. Ticket here from Bolton Council. Well, it's actually in not bad condition inside. That works. I've got no warning lights on at all. Quarter tank of diesel. The air conditioning works. Never seen that before. There's a button there, I think, for the deployable side steps. I'm not touching the sunroof because I daren't. Windows. That all works fine. Suspension. Are we going up? We are. We have liftoff. Is there a thud when we select drive? No, there isn't. Handbrake works. Well, this isn't so bad actually. Right, what have we got to do then? I'll give it a full engine service, a gearbox service, 4 new tyres I suppose, that's going to be expensive, wheel refurbs, paint work, try and get the dents out before I do the paint, new rear light lens. Straight away then, off the top of my head, we're into £2,500. That's the trouble with these cars, they're expensive to maintain. And then when they reach a certain value, people, lost Rick Astley there, people don't maintain them, that's the problem. Let me go and open the gate. Oh, my steps have gone back in and out again. Well, I'm impressed the air conditioning works, because I really didn't think that would. Let's see how she drives then, see if it's all loose and knocky over bumps. Doesn't seem to be straight away. Well, straight away it pulls well. It's not smoking excessively. I like to pretend it has been serviced, it just lost the receipts, but being a bit optimistic there, I think. Brakes are fine. Seems a bit sluggish compared to my 5-litre petrol, but then a bit they are, I suppose. It's a bit weird driving without a rear view mirror. Gearbox kicks down fine. It actually drives very well. I've driven enough of these to know after 200 metres whether it's alright or not, and I think it's alright. The start button isn't all abused. Usually they're the first things to give. No, it's quite pleasant to drive actually. Quite pleasant. Wait. So many idiots on the road, you know. Right, well, I don't really want to drive this much further without checking it over first. I don't want to do it any more damage. So I think you'll have to catch up with me in, I always say a day or two, but it's always months. So I don't know when, but at some point in the future, I'll finish this video off when it's all sorted. So yeah, catch up with you in the future. I'll leave it open. Well, the Westminster is all done, and I'm really happy with how it's turned out. It did take quite a bit longer than I anticipated, and it did cost me a little bit more than I was expecting, but I think it's worth it. I'm really pleased with myself for saving this one because I've taken quite a scruffy example and turned it into something which anybody would be proud of. I'd happily have this on my driveway. In fact, I've really enjoyed using it. There's just something really charming about a late L322. The whole car just feels softer than the L405. Even down to things like the seats and the steering wheel. Everything's just a bit more worn in. I mean, it could be because this one's done 135,000 miles, but I think that's the case in general. It's a bit like relaxing into your old settee. From the minute you get in this, you just feel at ease, and your shoulders droop. I posted a photograph of this today on my Instagram, along with the caption, "Old money or no money." And this is just one of those cars. You could visualise this in a car park outside a council tower block with graffiti on the wall, or parked outside a stately home. It just looks right in every setting, especially now this one's fixed, because you never know it was a 10-year-old car. In fact, the L322 design's actually 20 years old. You'd never know though, would you? I also love the physical buttons you got on the steering wheel. They're much quicker to respond than the touchscreen things on my L405. Anyway, enough rabbiting on. Let me tell you what I've done to get this L322 in this condition. Firstly, I took it down to my mechanics for a full engine service and MOT. And as is often the case with an older high mileage car, they picked up on a few more issues which I wasn't aware of. While it was down there, I ordered 4 Pirelli Scorpion tyres because I didn't want to put cheap tyres on a Range Rover. I just think it looks naff. I also replaced the wiper blades, and I found a replacement tail light on eBay for £200, so I ordered that. If you remember, the old one was smashed. My mechanics found that some of the brake lines were corroded, so some of those have been replaced. And there was also an issue with the side steps. Sometimes they'd work and sometimes they wouldn't. Sometimes they wouldn't fold out, sometimes they wouldn't fold back in. So I decided to just remove them altogether. You might disagree with me here, but I'm not a big fan of deployable side steps anyway. They're a little bit, they just make you look like a show-off. I had them on my L405, and at first they were a bit of a novelty. I thought they were quite cool. But then when the novelty wore off, every time I got out of the car and put my foot on the side step, I just felt like Lord Farquhar. I just felt like I was showing off unnecessarily, so I just removed them altogether. Couldn't be bothered going down that rabbit hole of misery. I also think as a design it looks a whole lot cleaner without them. I ordered some new reg plates for it from Harrods with my own logo on. I didn't like the old BCA plates. I mean, they were all faded anyway and wouldn't have passed an MOT, but I just think with BCA on the bottom, it just looks like it's been run on a shoestring. Something I always do with Range Rovers is replace the rear plate with a full-sized one. You've got a big space there for a plate, and I think it just looks better when you fill that whole space. That might just be me though, it's a bit of a personal thing that. I had to stop for some fuel with this, which is no surprise because it's a 4.4 litre V8. And when I was filling up, I discovered that the original fuel filler cap was missing, and somebody replaced it with one of those one-size-fits-all things, where you twist it and it kind of opens out. It just looks and feels really cheap, so I ordered a genuine one from Land Rover. I'm sad with details like that, but now there's a brand new fuel filler cap there and it just looks much better. While it was still down at my mechanics, I arranged for the windscreen man to come out and reattach the rear view mirror. I thought if I try and do it, every time I go over a bump it'll just drop off. After it was done there and it was serviced and MOT'd, I took it to the gearbox place for a gearbox service. This is something that I always preach, but I don't think it had ever been done on this. And of course it had done 135,000 miles. So my mate down at the gearbox centre has replaced the fluid, the filter and the sump. And I think it just gives you a bit of peace of mind. It wasn't faulty before, but a bit of prevention is always better than the cure. Too many manufacturers say that they're sealed for life, and that's just complete nonsense. It's still a serviceable item and it needs to be done. At that point, I'd already spent a couple of £1,000s because nothing on these cars are cheap. But it was time to paint it. So I took it down to the body shop, and Jimmy has done an excellent job once again. I was hoping I could pop the dents out on the driver's door and then buff it back, but that was a bit optimistic. So, doing a bit of Ford in here. So it had to be filled and then repainted. In addition to that, Jimmy painted the front bumper corner and gave the whole car a buff, and now you would never know it was 10 years old. I'm just looking out now over the long bonnet. You can see the little water droplets just dripping off in beads. Something really satisfying about that. The last job then was to take it to Tameside Valeting and leave it there for a full detailed clean, and they've done a really good job. It wasn't horrendously dirty before, but it did need a good clean. I also asked them to remove the horrible chavtastic front window tint, which they've done, and now it looks so much better, so much cleaner, and it's much lighter inside because of it. I don't know why people tint the front windows, it just looks really cheap. One thing I didn't bother doing was refurbishing the wheels. They're not that bad, and at that point I'd already spent thousands of pounds on it, and I thought it was just a waste of money. I've got to still try and make some profit out of this. By now you might be thinking, hang on a minute Matt, you haven't done any of that work yourself, have you? Well, not so fast. Remember how the old wheel centres were all corroded? I bought a new set off eBay for £10, and guess who fitted them? Me. I think I deserve a special pat on the back there for that one. I'm going to add NVQ mechanic onto my CV, which some could argue stands for not very qualified. Anyway, let me go through the costs with you. It's quite a long list, so you might want to put the kettle on, grab yourself a digestive. Right then, I paid £6,000 for the car, which on the face of it sounded like the bargain of the century, didn't it? But, as I'll explain with these costs, not so much. I've got two bills here for my mechanics. I'm not sure why, but the first one was £1,580.51. So it's had 10 litres of oil, a fuel filter, cabin filter, wiper blades, bulbs, a reflector. Oh, I'd forgotten about that. It was missing a reflector off the back bumper, so I've had a new one of those. That was £32. They fitted the rear lamp for me. They replaced the wheel nuts because they were all rusty, and that's quite a common problem with Land Rovers. With age, they start to burst, and then you just won't get them off, so they replaced them just in time. The 4 Pirelli tyres were £720 for the set. They also removed the side steps, and then £200 in labour, so that was £13.17 plus VAT, so £15.80 and 51p. The second bill at the mechanics was the MOT test fee, that was £40, a fuel cap, that was £41.71, brake flexi hose and another brake pipe, that was £37, £34 and £30 respectively, some brake fluid and labour, £280. So my total there was £518.86. In addition to that, we've got the £200 on eBay for the rear light lens, and the bill at the body shop was £400. Offside front and rear doors, near side front bumper corner, buff polish wax, along with a general clean and touch-in. £400, I think that's a bargain. On top of that, there was £25 for a set of number plates, £100 for a valet, £10 on wheel centres, £260 on a gearbox service. Let me just add this up then. So that takes my total spend to £3,294.37. Add in the £6,000 I paid for the car, my grand total is £9,294.37. It's an awful lot of car for that sort of money, isn't it? I was half tempted to just keep it and use it over the winter, keep the miles off mine. But I haven't done, I've decided to sell it. So I've currently got it advertised for £12,495. If it sells for that, then I'd get a profit of around £3,000, so it's still definitely worth doing. And to be honest with you, I quite enjoyed the process. The only trouble is, I'm not sure who this is going to attract. Who's going to want to buy a 135,000 mile Westminster like this? I think I'll have to qualify the customers myself on this occasion, and I'm going to have to be brutal. Ring ring, hello, I'm calling about your Range Rover Westminster. Right, before we go any further, do you have £3,000 set aside in a Range Rover rainy day pot? No I don't. Right, forget it then. I'm going to have to be that brutal. You can't run one of these cars on a shoestring. The last thing I want to do is sell it to somebody who's just come out of a brand new Skoda Kodiaq on lease and they've sent it back because they want to reduce the monthly payments. Because the first time an engine light pops on this, they'll just soil themselves and then they'll make my life a misery. So that isn't what I want. I need to sell it to somebody sensible, pragmatic, a Land Rover lover. It might sound like I'm being a bit unfair there, but trust me, I've been in this situation many, many times. If you sell the wrong car to the wrong person, then they just make your life a misery. I've said this before in many other Range Rover videos, but if you've only got enough to buy the Range Rover, then forget it, don't buy one. You need to keep some money aside for repairs. And as nice as this car is now, I've done all the jobs on it that I would normally do and normally recommend. It's still a 135,000 mile, 10-year-old Range Rover with one key and patchy service history. What do you expect is going to happen, really? Things will break. You just got to be prepared for it. I've not seen one of those for years. They are one of the ugliest cars on the road. A Hyundai Matrix. Believe it or not, I think they were designed by Pininfarina. I don't know who within the Pininfarina team designed that. Perhaps the caretaker, or the gardener, or the cleaner. Well, that all ended well, didn't it? I made about £3,000 profit and everyone was happy. I never saw it ever again. Actually, that's not quite true. After about 3 weeks, the customer got in touch to say the engine light had come on. So, anyway, I best just show you the video, hadn't I? This isn't very pleasant to watch. Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. You might recognise the car I'm in today. It's my 2012 Range Rover Westminster that I bought last autumn. It was a bit scruffy and unloved when I bought it, but I spent over £3,000 making it as nice as I possibly could. When I finished with it, it looks stunning. I'd have happily kept it myself. It had 4 odd tyres on, so I got rid of those and replaced them with 4 matching Pirellis. That cost me about £1,000. I had an engine service done, a gearbox service done, a bit of paint work, and it really did look the part when I'd finished. Then I finished my video with it, and I remember saying in the video that I'd have to qualify the next potential owner of this car to make sure that they were the right person for the car. That might have sounded a little bit harsh, but you really do need deep pockets to run a car like this. Nothing's cheap. Whenever I do a video with a car like this, I always insist that you need a healthy rainy day fund for any maintenance or repairs. Without that, you're just leaving yourself too exposed. It's too risky and I just wouldn't advise you do it. Anyway, a couple of days later I got to work and my colleague said, "Right Matt, good news, I've sold your car for £13,000. So I thought, right, okay, that'll do. Nice healthy profit for once. Then he said, "I've sent all the paperwork over to the finance company. I'm just waiting for them to approve it now." So I said, "Look, call the guy up, because if you can't afford to buy the car in the first place without finance, then this isn't the car for you, or he's not the right customer for this car." He said, "You can't really say that." So I said, "Well, why not? It's the truth." Now, I'm not trying to be rude or belittle anybody at all. That really isn't my intention here. But if you need to borrow money to buy a 135,000 mile 10-year-old Range Rover, then you really need your head testing. Just buy something simple, live within your means. Don't buy an old high mileage Range Rover, because it will end in tears, I promise you. I always get lambasted in the comments section when I say something like this, and I'm really not trying to be rude. I'm trying to offer sage, sensible advice. Anyhow, the finance got approved and he came and took it. Sure enough, 3 weeks later, it broke. It came up with a restricted performance light which put the car in limp mode. Then the owner gets straight on the phone to me and then turns up at the garage with what I can only describe as compensation face. You know that pose you see people making in the Daily Mirror when their child's been given a cold Happy Meal? That face. I see this sort of thing all the time and it just isn't fair. He accused me of just tarting up the bodywork and doing nothing to it mechanically, which was quite insulting really, given the amount of money I'd spent on it. You see how I prepare cars, I do tend to go overboard. Who else would put 4 brand new Pirellis on at a cost of £1,000? Who'd do a gearbox service? There can't be many other dealers in the UK who do things like that. But I do it for the love of cars. I do it to try and prolong the car's life. What I wanted to say was, you, a fully grown adult, bought a high mileage old car and then it broke. What did you expect? Don't start pointing the finger at me. But I know better than to rise to such insults, so I just let it ride. What I suspected happened is that he'd got a case of buyer's remorse when he realised he'd bought such a needy, expensive car. A car that cost £140 to fill a tank. A car that costs £650 a year to tax. He should never have bought it. And the consumer rights laws here in the UK, being the way they are, never seem to take the side of the dealer, ever. They never take into consideration how it's been driven, how it's been looked after, what they've done to it, where they've been in it. No, none of that. It's always the horrible, greedy dealer's fault. That's just how it works. I'm used to it now. I do genuinely have sympathy when something breaks, but I just wish customers would be a bit more realistic with their expectations. I had this week, for example. I sold a Citroën DS3, a 2012 or 13 Citroën DS3 with 80,000 miles on the clock. Quite a nice car as it goes, with full service history, and it belonged to my cousin. She bought a newer car off me and then traded this one in. So I sold it to a lady who was buying it for a daughter. Then precisely 1 week later, it broke down. So I said, take it to my mechanic, we'll put you in a courtesy car and we'll sort it. It turned out to be a couple of the blades had snapped off the fan, so it wasn't a big job. Then the next week, it broke again. So I asked them to take it back to my mechanics. This time the engine management light had come on. Then I got a big long-winded email like War and Peace saying how she was disappointed with the car, she'd lost faith in it, she'd lost faith in me, she just wanted something that was going to be reliable. Felt like saying, you bought a 10-year-old Citroën done 80,000 miles. Let's get real here, can we, for a second? If you want something that's going to be totally reliable, then buy a brand new Igo. But anything else is really pot luck. This is what I'm up against. I feel like banging my head against a brick wall sometimes. It's frustrating because it's an argument that I'll never win. After doing the job for so long, I know that I shouldn't sell older high mileage cars, but the problem is, especially now, nobody's got any money. So when I stock the nicer, newer, more expensive cars, they don't sell. There's no business there. So I have to sell the cheaper stuff. They're the only things that people seem to buy. It really is frustrating. You're just stuck in this never-ending cycle, this revolving door of negativity. I'll tell you another story while I'm on this rant. I had a message the other day from a guy on Instagram who'd bought a 16-year-old VW Touareg. And it looked immaculate, to be fair. It looked really nice. But within a week, it had broken down. The engine light had come on. He'd got a quote of around £900 to fix it, so he sent me a message asking for my advice. So I said, technically, you need to get back onto the dealer because it's their responsibility to put it right or refund you. But let's be fair, it's a 16-year-old car, so what I would do personally as a human being is offer to split the bill with them. And he said, no, I'm not doing that. I've only had the car a week. It's the dealer's fault for selling an old car. Now, I'm really not bad-mouthing this guy, by the way. It just made me realise what most of the general public must think. I didn't reply because I couldn't be bothered getting into an argument, but I thought, no, hang on a minute, it's your fault for buying a 16-year-old car, surely. Not the dealer's fault for selling it. This is quickly turning into one of those rant videos, and that wasn't my intention, but I think this is the problem with society these days. Nobody wants to be responsible for their own actions. It's always somebody else's fault. You see this sort of thing all the time, especially on TV adverts. Have you been clumsy and had an accident at work? Well, it's not your fault, it's obviously your boss's fault. Get a claim in, take them to the cleaners. Have you been sick on holiday because you got carried away with the Sambuca and the San Miguel? Well, it's not your fault, obviously. It's Hotel Paradiso's fault, it's probably food poisoning. Get a claim in. I heard an advert on the radio the other day, some law firm, and it said, have you ever sent money away to a lover overseas that turned out to be a scam? Call us now, we'll get your money back for you. I'm sorry, but if you've lost your money sending it to a ladyboy in Thailand, then it's your own stupid fault. But not here in 21st century Britain, it's not. It's always somebody else's fault. I've said this before, but there should be a caveat to consumer rights laws which doesn't include used products. How can it include used products? It just doesn't make sense. I fully get and support that if you buy a brand new washing machine and it starts leaking, then you should be able to take it back to the shop and swap it for a new one. But what if you buy a 16-year-old washing machine, which, let's face it, the only reason you're buying a 16-year-old washing machine is because you can't afford a brand new one? What happens when that leaks? Here in the UK, you've got exactly the same rights as the person that bought a brand new one. It doesn't make sense. I hear this sort of thing all the time when a customer gets arsey because they've bought a £3,000 car and it's broken. Well, £3,000 is a lot of money to me. Yes, it's a lot of money to me too, but not for a used car. £20,000 is a lot of money for me. Yes, it is a lot of money to me as well, but not for a used Bentley. Get in the real world. You can't buy something for a fraction of its cost new and then expect it to perform as well as the new product. I don't get it. Anyway, back to the Range Rover. So I asked the customer to take it to my mechanics and let them sort it out, obviously at my expense. My mechanic explained that one of the turbos was leaking, it needed to be replaced, which is quite a big job on the 4.4 litre Range Rover. So I asked my mechanic to sort it at my expense and I offered the customer a loan car. But that was the ideal opportunity for the customer to reject it because he wasn't happy with it. And yes, Mr. Customer, I quite agree. If you bought a 135,000 mile Range Rover, you shouldn't have any inconveniences at all, should you? This was the ideal scenario for somebody suffering with buyer's remorse to knock it back to the dealer. So in the end, I gave him his money back and I thought I'll just fix it and then sell it again. He'd ended up sitting at my mechanics for a few weeks until they could find time to get it in the workshop. Then when they eventually did find time, they tried to start it and it just wouldn't start. At that point, my mechanic called me to say, look, it's quite a big job this, it's probably best going to a specialist. So I found a specialist, one who did engine rebuilds and engine repairs and that sort of thing. I had it transported to them and they sorted it. It was there for a good few months while they sorted it out. The trouble with the engine on these is so tightly packed into the engine bay that you've got to take the engine out of the car and onto a bench to sort the turbo. And while they were at it, it didn't just need one turbo, it needed both of them replacing. Apparently the reason it wouldn't start at my mechanics was that one of the turbos had blocked for some reason, so it wasn't letting any air get through. So as some sort of fail-safe thing, it just wouldn't start the engine. As you can imagine, it's quite a lot of work to take the engine out of one of these. So my bill was, you ready for this? £7,336. The labour alone was about half that, and that goes back to my original point. You need deep pockets to run a car like this. It's all well and good saying, oh, you can buy a Range Rover for £5,000. Yeah, but can you run it? Can you afford to put a new turbo on it or both when they break? My guess is not. As you can imagine, I've fallen out of love with this car just because of the heartache it's caused me, but there is something about driving a last of L322. They are a proper Range Rover, they're a bit of class really. However, be warned, they are very expensive to run. I was watching a Lucy on Cars video recently. Now, her and George own a L322 Range Rover facelift like this, and in the last year or so I think they've spent £7,000 on it. But in the video she accepted that was just part and parcel of owning a car like this. But what can you do? If you want to drive a car like this, then you've got to expect a large bill every now and then. Well, I think that's about it. There are quite a few morals to this story. One, you need to be responsible for your own actions. Two, if you want to run a Range Rover, you need some sort of rainy day fund and keep topping that fund up. And three, don't buy cheap. If you buy cheap, you buy twice. Well, that all ended in tears, didn't it? I know what we'll do. We'll give it another go. Now, this time I bought a very cheap L405. Now, in case you don't know, the L405 replaced the L322. So the L322 ran from 02 to 12, and then the L405 ran from 2012 to 2022. Yes. So what I bought here was a very late 2012 L405, which was like the first of. It was a 4.4 litre Vogue. Oh no, autobiography, I can't remember. Anyway, let's watch the video, shall we? It was quite cheap at the time. Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Well, today I bought something very interesting. In fact, I didn't realise you could pick these up so cheaply. It must be the cheapest example in the UK. What I've bought is a Range Rover Autobiography 4.4 litre turbo diesel, the new shape one, the L405, for just £18,500. How cheap's that? I haven't seen this yet, but I've had a pretty thorough description of it. I bought this from a car trader friend of mine, and usually his descriptions are pretty bob on. He called me up, I think knowing full well that I'm a sucker for a Range Rover, and he said, right, I've got a 2012 4.4 litre Autobiography Range Rover here for 18.5 grand. So straight away I thought that was a last of L322, so I thought, sounds a bit dear that. He was describing it to me, he said it's got the 22-inch turbine style wheels, deployable side steps, and I was thinking, that doesn't sound like an L322. He said it's in October or November 2012, it's the first of the new shape. So I thought, right, that sounds like a bargain. How could I say no to that? It's basically, to all intents and purposes, the same car as this, only £60,000 cheaper. No brainer. Now, if you'd have asked me how much that was worth off the top of my head, I would have said 22, 23 grand. So 18.5 just seems like the bargain of the century. Let's go and have a look then, shall we, at what I think is possibly the cheapest L405 in the UK. Well, we're here. I'm really excited about that. I can't believe that's 18.5 grand. That, you know, with a private reg on it, looks like a 30 grand car. It's a little bit pimp my ride, if I'm honest. It's not my cup of tea. I prefer to see silver bits on it rather than black. It's all kind of murdered out, as they say. It does look quite stealthy though. The wheels need refurbishing. It's got Guy Salmon plates, so it's a Manchester car originally. It's got the wooden steering wheel. It's got a dash cam, so the previous owner must have been quite sensible. 18.5 grand. Someone's put an aftermarket grille on, but I don't hate it. It actually looks okay. Right, let's go and have a look. Okay then, what have we got here? Looks really good, that. I think I need my jacket on actually. Quite a cold day. That's better. Well, straight away the wheels need doing. The brake discs look new though. They must have been replaced recently. But yeah, these wheels, these 22-inch turbine wheels, my second L405 had those, and they're a really good looking wheel, but they should be diamond cut. And obviously somebody's just painted them all black, so I might get them done back in their original two-tone colour. I think that would look better. What do you think? But bodywork wise, it's quite straight down the panels. Only got one key for it, unfortunately. But we've got the deployable side steps. You can see those hidden away down there. I'm guessing it's Santorini black. They always are. And yeah, new brake discs on the front as well. That's positive. It looks like it could do with a tyre. We've got a little chunk out the sidewall here. It's a Pirelli though, but it looks a bit old, that. We've only got about 3 mil of tread left. What's the back one like? The back one is about the same, maybe 3.5 mil on the back one. And that's a Continental. Now they should match on each axle, ideally. That looks really cool, you know. I prefer the look of mine, personally, but all blacked out is quite cool. On this side, we've got odd tyres here. That's a Goodyear Eagle. Why do people put odd tyres on a Range Rover? It does look quite nice though with the sun shining on it. You can see all the bits of glitter in the metallic paint. I think it wants a good buff and clean though. So I think we're into 2 new tyres. What's on this back one? That's a matching Continental. I think for what it's worth I might put a set of new ones on it. That's on about 3.5 mil. So we're into £1,000 for tyres. They do cost a lot to repair these cars, that's the trouble. So £1,000 in tyres and probably £4 or £4.50 in wheel refurbs. But the bodywork looks quite tidy on both sides. There's a tiny little mark here. Only a dent though, I think that'll pop out. Moving around the back, it's an autobiography. It's missing its A and also its V. So it's a Range Rover. They're probably eBay badges, I'll have to order some more. But the bodywork looks alright. Again with a good clean and polish. That should clean up well. Okay then, let's have a look inside. Side steps, which are actually working. It is indeed dark brown, chocolate brown, with an ivory, oh, it is a leather headlining. Quite like that, leather and suede. Well, the condition's very good. I mean, bear in mind this is a 10-year-old car now. There's a little bit of wear on the buttons here. We've got the nice wooden steering wheel, a little bit of wear on these volume controls, standard stuff. I actually replaced those on my first one. I think they were 60, 70 quid from Land Rover. It's all quite good though. We've got some service history here, which I'll go through in a second. What have we got in here? Some bits of trim, which need to go back. That little thing there, in case you put petrol in your fuel tank. And it's got like a shut-off thing, so that tool allows you to open it again. What have we got in here? I'll be keeping those, I think. Little Swiss Army set. What about the top one? Some air fresheners. It smells quite clean, this. I mean, it is quite clean, actually, in general. The back seats look like they've never been sat in, actually. And they've got the reclining feature. Nice original mats. The colour combination's a bit of a choice, but I don't hate it. We've got heated and cooled rear seats. They're lovely, these, aren't they? Panoramic roof. This, of course, being an early one, won't have the start-stop feature, so it'll be high tax, unfortunately. It also doesn't have the reverse camera washer jet thing. That needs a little bit of encouragement on this cold morning. No spare wheel, that's unusual. Got some tyre gunk there and a compressor. Right. Deployable tow bar as well. Is that going to come out to greet us, is it? How do you work that? There we go. How much of a pose is that? My second one had this. Can't beat a little gadget, can you? We'll send that back. Well, that all works, and we've got the parcel shelf, which is all in good order. The more I look at this, the more I think this is a bargain. We're missing an A there as well. Right, I need to order 2 new badges for it. Let's have a look under this bonnet. That one's clicking back. This side step works as well. Do the struts work? Yeah. Very good. You can't see an awful lot under here. Everything's covered in plastic covers. Difficult to see anything really, isn't it, this? Well, as far as I can tell, it's all there. Let's have a look at this service history. Right, this has been done by... I've used them before. JC Motor Services in New Mills. That was around the corner from where I used to be based. So they did a service in September last year at 109, and it's currently done 114,139. So slightly less than the 115 I was told. That's good news. Oh, right. You spent some money on this. The last service then at JC Motor Services on the 23rd of September last year, it had a full engine oil flush, fuel treatment, long life oil, oil filter, air filter, fuel filter, pollen filter, set of front brake pads, front wear sensor, gearbox oil service and filter kit. There's every chance, this previous owner's been watching my videos. That's something I'd have done. That was done at 109,000 miles. Also transfer box service and ancillaries. That was £1,429. Well, that's good to see. In addition to that, this was after it. It had 4 boost hoses and some fuel treatment and a rad cap and some ancillaries. To replace boost pipes and look at water leak. So it must have been leaking coolant out of the rad cap. Have ordered rad cap. Okay, right, that was £380. Oh, wow. Somebody spent a lot of money on this. You ready for this? This was done at 110,000 miles. 2 drive shafts, £198 each. Diff oil. Thermostat housing and radiator hose. 2 radiator hoses. Front drop links. That's quite common on these, they're a heavy car. 1 offside front knuckle, whatever that is, a near side front knuckle. They were £1,500 alone. ABS sensor, 2 of. 4-wheel alignment, antifreeze, ancillaries and labour. So the job was to replace drive shafts, diff oil, thermostat housing and 3 radiator hoses. Ready for this bill? £3,798. You know, I always say keep a couple of grand back. This is why. This is exactly why. Well, that's all been done 4,000 miles ago. Oh, we've got a spec check here. It must be from when he bought it. The cost new of this car in 2013 was £96,000. £96,890. So it's got the 22-inch wheels, deployable tow bar, privacy glass, full-size spare wheel, that's gone missing, and an extra large additional screen wash bottle. Service history, right. So it was serviced at Guy Salmon Knutsford. That's who I use, actually. That was done in 2016. Had another service at 83,000 miles. 2017. Has been looked after then, this, hasn't it? What's this one? This one's been done in Cheltenham. Wonder if they were horsey. I'm thinking Range Rover, deployable tow bar, Cheltenham. That bill was £700. Water pump preheater, special order, and a heater valve. We've got another one here. That was £402. That was a full service and replaced the brake fluid. That was done in 2020. And then we've got all the MOT history. Well, somebody's looked after this, haven't they? Let's fire her up. See how many warning lights we've got. None. Well, that's not strictly true. My fuel light's on, which is fairly standard for one of these. We've got 26 miles of range, but no warning lights at all. This should have, it's got the dual view as well. That was an option, I think. So the driver can look at the sat-nav while the passenger's watching television. Heater controls there. I forget now, there are lots of subtle changes between that and this. I actually prefer the proper buttons you get on here rather than those touchscreen things. I think what we need to do then is take this for a drive. Make sure it kicks down fine, make sure there are no warning lights, all that sort. I've just spotted there the dual view. Let me show you. So from my side, I'm watching the sat-nav. From the passenger side, we're watching Al Jazeera TV. Right, let's take this for a quick drive then and see how it performs. You can't beat the driving position of a full-size Range Rover. You are just the king of the road. I also love the wooden steering wheel. I wish mine had that. Now, if it's had all this suspension work, this should be solid over the bumps. Straight away it feels it. There's a slight sort of creaking noise. I think it might be the parcel shelf. Then again, it is a 10-year-old car, I suppose. Well, it pulls well straight away. I've got no warning lights on. No restricted performance lights, none of that. That creaking's irritating. I can't quite believe this is an £18,000 car. Oh, she flies. You can't beat the torque you get from the 4.4 litre diesel. Wow, that noise is irritating. What am I going to do with this then? I think straight away I need to run it down to my mechanics, get them to give it a full service and an MOT. I'll order 4 tyres for it. I'll get the wheels refurbished. I'll order some new badges for it. What else? What else? I'll ask them to give it a thorough check over while it's having its service and make sure everything else is alright. Then I need to take it to the detailers. Get them to give it a good, clean, but also a proper buff. And I think we've got a 25 grand car here then. My spend, as long as there are no issues that I haven't discovered yet, should be about 18.5 in the car, £1,000 on tyres, we'll say 5 on the wheel refurbs, that takes us up to 20. 5 on the service and MOT, that's 20,500. I could have here a nearly 20% profit margin. There might be 4.5 grand in this. I think on the forecourt this looks like a £25,000 car. Well, I'm bowled over with the drive of it. I thought, the fact that it's done 114,000 miles, I thought it might be a little bit loose and vague, but it really isn't. I think that parcel shelf needs a bit of adjustment because that noise would drive me mad. Or I'd have to drown it out with the radio. What a car. Doesn't really drive an awful lot worse than mine, you know. And there's a huge gulf in price. I think then that's about as far as I can go with it today. Let me get it down to my mechanics and we'll see what it needs. I'll catch up with you in... how long shall we give it? 3 weeks. We'll give it 3 weeks and you should see a fully prepared car with a quieter parcel shelf. Right, cheers guys, I'll see you then. Well, what do you think? After just a couple of weeks, it's all done, and I think it looks $1 million. I know I've said this before many times, but there's nothing quite like driving a full-size Range Rover. They're just the best. I dropped my white one off at Land Rover Knutsford yesterday for an issue that's going to be sorted under warranty. The soft close motor on the driver's door stopped working. I know what you're thinking, first world problems, but it's meant that I've been without a Range Rover now for 24 hours. So getting back in this was a pleasure. And this 10-year-old L405, which I think was one of the cheapest Range Rover autobiographies in the whole of the UK at 18.5 grand. Can't believe it was that cheap. It really doesn't feel a whole lot different from my white one. I think this genuinely looks like a £50,000 car. If you were to put a private plate on this, nobody would know. Anyway, let me talk you through what I've had done. Firstly, I took it down to my mechanics for a service, a check over and an MOT. I was going to have a full service done, all the filters and all the fluids, but it had one recently, so I thought that'd be a waste of perfectly good parts. Instead of wasting time and money, I just had a minor service carried out and an inspection, and the MOT. I asked them to give it an oil change and just a general check over to see what sort of condition it was in. The next day my mechanic called me to tell me what a nice example it was. It's not the sort of conversation I have every day. There were no issues to report at all, which might sound surprising on a 10-year-old Range Rover, but the previous owner of this had spent an awful lot of money in the last 12 months, so I wasn't all that shocked. Next up I ordered 4 Pirelli Scorpion tyres for it because the old set of tyres were odd and not in the best shape. You're not supposed to run a 4-wheel drive car on odd tyres, especially one as fragile as a Range Rover. And I think it looks a whole lot better now it's been shod in new rubber. Then I took the car over to Prestige Wheels in Bredbury to have the wheels refurbished. Now if you remember, I wanted to have them done diamond cut because I think they look really cool, but Prestige advised against it. They said the wheels at 10 years old had probably been done before and there's a limit to how many times you can do them, so they advised going all black. And that's exactly what happened. So they've been stripped and then powder coated in gloss black, and I think they look really good. I'm not usually a big fan of the blacked out, pimped out look. I think it looks a little bit too wannabe gangster, but on the Range Rover I do think it suits it. Then I dropped it off at Tameside Valeting for a full clean and detail, and they spent 18 hours on it doing loads of paint correction. If you look at it before, there were loads of imperfections, loads of small minor scratches and marks, and now it looks like glass. They've given it a mirror finish, They've done a superb job, as they always do. In between all this, I ordered 2 new Range Rover badges because I had a few letters missing. So I replaced the missing letters and job done. It was kind of like an episode of Blockbuster. Can I have a P please, Bob? Then I got it back to work and fitted some new reg plates, which, as I always say, lifted it straight away. The previous plates on this didn't actually match. The front was from Guy Salmon, I think, and the back was from some motor spares shop. Now the front and rear plates match and they look a whole lot better, and I've also gone with a large rear plate. Range Rovers just don't look right, in my opinion, with a small rear plate, so it's one of the jobs that I always do. And I think that's about it. The thing with Range Rovers though, which probably won't come as much of a surprise, is that you do need deep pockets to run and maintain them. Take this one for example. I think I've got off lightly with this one because it had a lot of money spent on it recently, and yet I've still spent over £2,000. And I haven't even had that much done to it. Now, had there been some serious issues with this, I could have quite easily doubled that spend. So that's my warning to you all. Take heed. Generally speaking, if you can't afford to fill a tank or you wince at the cost of the road tax, then this isn't the car for you. Buy one by all means because they're the best things on the road, but make sure you keep £2,000 or £3,000 to one side for any possible repairs or maintenance. You will need to do that. I'm not being negative, I'm just being realistic. Let me run you through the cost then for this one. So I paid £18,500 for the car. The mechanical bits, the tyres, the MOT, that cost me £1,242.50. The biggest part of that with the tyres, they were about £250 each. The wheel refurbs cost me £384 and the badges cost me £52. The number plates cost me £25, that's because the large rear is a bit more expensive than a standard plate. And the valet and detailing cost was £350, which I think was a bit of a bargain considering the amount of man hours involved. That takes my total to £20,553. Such a lot of car for the money, isn't it? This would easily retail for £25,000, but like I said earlier, stick a private plate on this and it looks like it could be worth double that. Well, I think that's about it. I hope that hasn't put you off buying a used Range Rover. It certainly hasn't put me off anyway. Since then, I've probably owned 20, 30 maybe? I don't know. This is quite sad really, but I've now got one from every single generation, which I don't know. I was going to say I'm proud of, but I don't really know if I should be. Anyway, thank you once again for watching. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and TikTok. I'll leave the links below. And yeah, cheers guys. Let me just get on Marketplace now and look at cheap L322s.